What's up, guys? I'm Alex with BFE Adventures, and today we're going to talk about whether or not you should buy a T7. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so I hope you guys can hear me well. It is pouring down rain right now, so I'm hoping that you can hear what I'm saying. And yeah, excuse my garage. It's condensating like crazy because it was just like 0 degrees and now it's 45. But anyway, today we're talking about the T7, and I'm going to do my darndest not to compare it to this guy right here. That's the next video. So as you can see, it is nasty, but that is because it has been too cold to even spray it off because it would just freeze solid. So it has all of the fun stuff on it still from the last trip. So anyway, let's go into the T7. So there's pretty much nothing I'm going to say that you haven't already heard from another video on the T7. It's been out 3 years now. Well, 4. It's 2024. There's just nothing that I'm going to say that you haven't already heard. If you've watched my other videos, though, I'm going to give you kind of my relationship with this compared to some of the bikes that I've had in the past. I'm going to leave this one out of it because there's a separate video talking about these two. But overall, I would just like to shed some light on the T7 and hopefully give it in a way that is a little different than what you're used to. So if you've watched some of my other videos, you know that whenever I describe a bike, I like to describe it in its visceral feel and not necessarily like the stats. Like if you want the stats, check out Big Rock Moto or somebody like that that does stats in their videos. So overall, my initial impressions of the T7, I've put a couple thousand miles on it now. I've taken it on a 5.5 hour road trip one way, ridden it off-road, ridden it on gravel, ridden it in mud, and I have a pretty overall good understanding of the bike now in Midwestern conditions. So starting with the most important thing, the motor is absolutely incredible. Everyone said it, but I cannot stress how smooth this motor is. It is literally like an electric bike. It is just, the more you give it throttle, the more the power comes on, and it's extremely linear. I mean, I never even had to like get used to riding a wheelie on this thing. You could just clutch it up and the power is so predictable. It is awesome. So I love the motor. It's nothing that's going to shock your socks off. It's not going to blow you away. I mean, it's like 75 horsepower or something like that, and it's 450 pounds. So it's just, it's not, again, shocking, but it can still be exciting. Like when you twist the throttle, it's going to go. The other thing that I'll say is it puts the power down wonderfully off-road. Just like everybody else has said, it's got that anti-squat thing that really makes it find traction, and it's incredible for its ability to find traction off-road. Right now it's got the Scorpion Rally STRs on the back. Good tire. After that, I'm probably going to swap back over to like probably my Motaz Rousey. That's just like my go-to tire. Love it. But right now with that, it's doing fantastic. So overall, other stuff about the bike, it is top heavy like everybody says, but something that I will say that I noticed about it that I actually like is the way that the weight sits up high and in the front. It's actually easier when you're sliding it like on gravel or around a dirt corner and the rear end steps out on you. That, I'm not a physicist, but the forward momentum of the top heaviness of the gas tank also coming around with you kind of saves you a little bit. So like as you're drifting the bike, that heavy front end is still bringing that momentum with you, and it actually makes it a lot easier to slide as long as you're, you know, how you should be and kind of up over the front end of the bike, keeping traction on your front tire. That bike really carries itself well. So as far as like sliding goes, this is the best sliding adventure bike I've ever ridden. So that's what I'll speak to as far as the top heaviness. Something else to be said about the motor and the way that it rides is it is the least stalling bike, adventure bike for sure, that I've ever ridden. I mean, this thing, you can crawl from, like, you can crawl in second gear and it is not going to die. It's not going to stall. It is, which makes it incredible. You know, you can be a gear too high accidentally, and chances are it'll still crawl out of it. And it's really incredible, honestly. The ability of this bike, the lugability when you're down low, is incredible. So now I'll speak to the highway characteristics. So compared to my other adventure bikes I've had, like just a couple off the top of my head, Super Tenere, R1200 GS, Africa Twin. I've spent a lot of time on an 1190. Those are like the other bigger bikes. I have not personally owned a whole bunch of middleweight bikes other than like this or like a KLR. This is a million times better, that's all I'll say on the road, than those. But compared to the big bikes, it's going to be singing at 85 miles an hour plus. So if you're doing faster than that, that's where people will do like some kind of a re-gear, change the countershaft sprocket, something like that, you know. But honestly, this is the only comparison I'll make in this video of these two bikes. This at 80, 85, which is what I've been riding a lot for the last year. This is loud, it's buzzy at 85 for extended periods of time. Still way better than the previous gen, but it's loud and buzzy. This is like a sewing machine compared to that. So like with earplugs in, I don't even hear this bike whenever I'm going 80, 85 miles an hour. So yes, the motor may be strained a little bit, but they're made to run like that. You're not going to blow it up running 80, 85 miles an hour. It's just, it's definitely higher in the RPMs. So I won't say the bike feels strained. Like it's so smooth that there was times that I didn't realize it, and I looked down and I'm, you know, going over 90 and had to back it down. So as far as its rideability motor-wise on the highway, totally doable. You can go forever on it. I mean, heck, long haul Paul put on, I don't even know how many miles on his Tenere. So you can definitely put some mileage on this thing. Comfort-wise, it doesn't have anything. It's got on or off ABS. That's it. So on-road, you're not going to get cruise control. You don't get traction control off-road. There's no frills. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I'm not even going to weigh in on that. It's just what it is. So it's simple. Just don't expect the niceties that you get in a big bike or like a more expensive middleweight bike like an 890 or something like that. So it's just not the same. Again, not going to compare it to this bike. I will compare it to some of the other ones in the segment to give you my take on it. This compared to the 890, the 890 feels like an off-road weapon, and it's way better on-road. So realistically, if you want my opinion, I think the 890 is better in most ways. But the motor is actually, in my opinion, more enjoyable on this, just because I don't need a traction control to ride it off-road. It just works really, really well. And the way that the bike hooks up, the way that the motor lugs, you just don't need traction control. It's all right here. And, you know, comparing it to like a KLR or something like a little smaller, but in that same range, this is going to be 5 times the bike on the road as the KLR. And honestly, off-road, I don't feel like the capabilities are much worse. Like it feels like more like an adventure bike, whereas my KLRs that I've owned, maybe it was because they were KLRs, they were cheap, I didn't care if I dropped them, so I would ride them slightly more aggressively. But I do think, honestly, that this is better off-road, even though the KLR, I feel like I was more confident on it. Could be that I just don't have enough mileage on this yet, but in most instances, this is probably better. Compared to a big bike, like I said, there's just no comparison. Off-road, this thing is a weapon compared to the 1,000+ bikes. I'll take this on all kinds of stuff that I would hesitate. So like the way that I used to explain it was like whenever I was on my GS and we'd come to a big valley, I would think twice about going down there if I didn't know what was on the other side of it, because I knew I had to get that big pig back up the hill if it didn't work. Whereas then I got my Africa Twin, and that was way better off-road, and I was always like the first one to be like, well, yeah, I'll go do that. And to a degree, okay? Like if it was stuff that I'd be nervous on a dirt bike on, well then no, I'm not going to take the Africa Twin. This thing, I mean, unless it's like something that I know that I'm going to hurt the bike if I crash it, I'm sending it. So this thing definitely is good enough off-road to inspire that kind of confidence. Now, the one place that the bike falters off-road is in the suspension department. It's, as everyone knows, you've watched reviews on it, you've been researching this bike, you know that the suspension on it is super soft, okay? I weigh 170 pounds, so I'm a little smaller than a lot of the guys that are riding this bike. So for me, honestly, it's fine for me. Maybe if I decide to ride this more aggressively, or if I didn't own this, then I would swap out the springs to something stiffer because I would be hucking this off-road a lot harder than I do now. But now that I have this, anytime it's an aggressive off-road day, I'm going to take this. Anytime it's like a lighter off-road day with a lot more pavement or gravel mixed in, or like just a long day in the saddle, I'm taking this. And so as far as suspension goes, like I said, if you're over 200 pounds, you're going to feel it. If you're an experienced rider and you're over 200 and you take this thing off road, you're going to bottom it out a lot. I mean, it's soft. But the trade-off is it's super comfy. So that's what you got to think about. Do you want comfort or do you want aggressive riding? And that's kind of where you draw the line and decide what you want to do, if you're going to put new suspension on it or respring it or whatever. So that's pretty much it. The overall wrap up, I will say, is if you're looking at this bike, you probably fall into one of three categories. One, you've had a big bike and it's just a lot off-road, so you're looking to get something smaller. That's a natural progression of ADV riders, I feel like. Number two, you're trying to get into the segment and you're trying to pick kind of like a middle of the road bike, or you have something smaller like this, or even smaller like a smaller dual sport, and you're looking at stepping up into the ADV category. And so I'll kind of say that backwards. I'll start there. So if you have a smaller bike and you're looking at getting into the ADV market, and you're looking at middleweight bikes, what I would say is this is a fantastic option if you are budget oriented. If you don't have a budget and you don't care about, potential issues, then an 890, 790, those are going to be a better platform as far as performance goes, suspension, road riding. Those bikes are going to be better. The Touareg is going to be better off-road. I mean, there's arguments about that, but that definitely seems to be the consensus. Like a DR650, XR650, KLR, those are all those are dirt bikes that you can thrash around. I wouldn't call those adventure bikes. This definitely is. So it feels like an adventure bike. It rides like an adventure bike. People say, oh, it rides like a big dirt bike. I used to say that about the GS, but I can tell you, this rides like a big dirt bike. This rides like an adventure bike. I don't care how you put it. But so I think this is a fantastic option. And like I said, if you're budget minded, I don't think you can get a better bike, an adventure bike, for this price if you're trying to stay a little smaller. Comparing it to other bikes in the used market, there's just nothing in the middleweight category that's less than 3 years old. And so you're still looking in the $8,000 plus range. So if you're in that range, this is incredible. If you don't have a range, get something, get a KTM, get a Norden 901, get something like that, Desert X, something like that. So now we'll move up to the people just getting into the segment. If you don't have a whole bunch of experience, I don't think you can pick a better bike than this because of the luggability, because the motor's not going to run away from you. This bike is just an absolutely incredible entry point. You don't have to worry about a bunch of fancy electronics. You don't have to worry about any of the electronics going wrong. This is just like, if I was just getting into the market, or if my best friend was trying to get into riding with us, this is 100% the bike that I would tell them to get. It would be perfect for an entry-level rider. The elephant in the room I have not addressed is the Transalp 750. I've not personally ridden it yet, so I'm not going to speak to it. So that's just where we're at on that. The other end of the spectrum, if you have a bigger bike and you're coming to a smaller bike, what I would say is if the niceties is what attracted you to the big bikes, then this is where you'll miss them on this bike. Okay, if it was like the big motor, big power, well then anything smaller than an 890, 901 or Desert X is going to feel subpar to you. If you're looking for something smaller that you can ride more aggressively off-road, well, that's where I would say, okay, now you need to consider how much are you going to be road tripping on it and how much are you going to be riding aggressively off-road. Because I would argue if you fall into the category of people that are like, you know, the more I do it, the more I don't feel like riding street anymore, and they fall down into the dirt category, well, then you're probably better off looking at 690, 500s, you know, that range, Honda 450, something like that. So I would say almost jump farther or like add that to your stable. But if you just need a do-it-all bike and you want that adventure bike capability to go cruise 5 hours to your destination, this is fantastic as long as you're okay without the niceties. If you want cruise control, if you want 100 plus horsepower, well then you have to look in the 900 range. You have to look at the 890s, 901s, like that kind of range, the Tiger Rally Pro, you know, those kind of bikes. So I hope that sheds some light on everything. If you have any questions, by all means, put them in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer them. And then as always, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. It helps me out more than you know. If you ever want to take a tour with us at BFE Adventures, feel free to check us out at bfeadventures.com. We have, I think, 4 tours left that we're booking for 2024. So feel free to jump in on one of those or reach out to me personally and we'll get you signed up for those. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, take care, guys.